Joe can join eventually.
I'm gonna be on that shit, just writing notes like, who's a good player? Bet money. Put that motherfucker on a
I got another
parlay.
one for you, Trey. You ready? I scratch your head, you fall asleep like a tattooed golden retriever.
Why
This
is
is
it
about
tattooed?
the Nazi, by the way.
Wow.
What does that mean, Taylor Swift? What does that mean?
She's on her Kanye shit now.
My favorite is Touch Me While Your Boys Play Grand Theft Auto.
You know, that one upsets me.
It's
I know several people.
I just be like, look, wrong friend group. My boys don't play Grand Theft Auto. Like, we out here playing Helldivers. I hell dive into that. All right, so let's start this episode.
All right, so welcome back to. Oh fuck! I forgot already. God damn it!
Nah, you good, bro?
The tangent talk. That's not what it was. Takes, talks, and tangents. There we go. Welcome back to Takes, Talks, and Tangents.
TT.
Triple T in the morning. Even though you could be listening to this whenever.
Nah, it's in the morning.
Okay, so
you listen to this in the morning. You listen to it any other time of the day, you messed up, bro. So you ain't tuning in at the right time.
Clyde is alienating our fan base already.
Easy, bro. Easy. And if they don't know, I'm going to show up to their house in a monster truck blasting Taylor Swift's recent album, but only the lyrics that they don't understand. And I would just turn it down, then turn it right back up, back on the lyrics where they're just like, what are you trying to say here? And then I would just drive off. And I would do this twice a week.
No, we're absolutely going to review that album because that's... So hold on.
It's a doozy.
Before we continue, I have one question about this potential album review. There's two. Which one are we reviewing? Because there's one... Oh, so we're doing the double album one.
Yeah. I mean, all the songs produced by Jack Antonoff just sound like Jack Antonoff shit all over them. So, like, that's what he does to everything he produces.
Listen, I don't know nothing about him besides that he's from New Jersey. And I didn't know he was Bleachers until this year. Like, literally didn't know that till this year. Outside of that, I know nothing about Homie. Like, I don't think I've ever heard any of his music.
He should have stuck to playing the guitar and fun. And we all would have liked him. But no, he couldn't do it. He couldn't just let Nate Russ sing while he just sat in the background chilling. He might have written the lyrics. I don't know who wrote the lyrics for fun. But anyway.
Well, it is funny because, like, all I hear about him is how much people hate his production. Like, Taylor Swift fans don't like it.
He's got a really heavy hand, and he makes everything sound very similar.
I mean, you can literally change that in the program. Okay, whatever. All right.
Ralph's ear is covering the...
So
it just looks like it's saying, and that's what he is right now.
Doesn't help that it's in red, too.
Mm-hmm.
Is Clyde just pixels for everybody else, too?
Yeah.
Bulls?
Pixels.
You're very pixelated.
That's fine. Nobody's
might be the internet, though.
There's a lot of audio.
No,
yeah, we haven't gotten to the video part yet.
Yeah.
We haven't really had too many video moments in this episode. The one that we did have, I wasn't recording.
There you go, bro.
And the whole first episode with Ralph, we keep referencing it, and no one knows what he looked like at the time.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
You use their imagination. Honestly, you could just probably use.
I think we should buy Ralph like a Zorro costume.
When he's feeling devilish, just puts it on.
All right, so let's start trying our best to build up this here timeline of events with the extra capitalist rise of milking video games. So let's see here. So it's like I had said earlier in the episode, the first one I remember was Mass Effect 2. Because I think Mass Effect 2 is genuinely the first game I ever bought DLC for. I think.
Mine was just Halo 3.
There was DLC for Halo 3?
Yeah, there's the multiplayer.
Okay, so there's definitely Mass Effect 2 for me then. What about y'all? Do you remember like your first major? Well, you just said Halo 3 for you, Clyde. What was it specifically? Like, do you remember?
About major.
Well, I know. I just mean like. Well, I guess I shouldn't say major. Just DLC in general, because I think for me it genuinely was Mass Effect 2.
I think for me, just because like I was big on like before I met Ralph, I was just like, yo, like I'm good with my Wii. So it's just like I'm good. I could play old GameCube games on there. So I was just like, fuck it, like I ain't complaining. And then Ralph was just like, yo, you gotta get on this 360 wave. And I'm like, all right, whatever, let's see. I play Halo 2, and I'm like, I get it, bro. But mind you, I would play bits and pieces of Halo 2 on this Red Ring 360 that he also gave me. And I was trying to fix that shit because I'm thinking like, yeah, you know, I want to be a game designer. So let me hop in this shit. Took out the cooling gel because it will overheat and just kind of fuck the whole thing up. So it gave me like 15 to 40 minutes of gameplay every time. So the moment I'll turn it on, I'll hop in and just like immediately just start playing. And then after a while, I'm like, all right, you know what? I fucks with Halo. Got a 360. Hopped on Halo 3 with them.
Hold on.
Had a great time. What's up?
You got into Halo on that broken 360?
Yeah, bro. When you lend me the broken 360 and the Halo 2 with the steel cover.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Then I was like, I bet. Got Halo 3. And they were just like, yo, like it came with like the multiplayer DLC because that was the only DLC for that because the story through and through was perfect. Like you didn't need no add-ons to the Halo 3 story. It was just perfect through and through. The whole game was perfect at launch. It didn't need DLC, but they were just like, yo, we got these multiplayer maps. Here you go. Bought every one of them, loved every one of them. And I was just like, if this is content that games are going to start putting out, I'm down to pay for it. Years later, I'm like, these motherfuckers are ripping us off, man.
I guess that's the question. Like, do we count, like, expansion packs as the start of this?
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess technically on PC with expansions, that was the first DLC, but like, because I remember actually being relatively young walking through Best Buy and seeing expansion packs in the PC section for Half-Life, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe like, it was always RTSs.
If we're counting expansion packs as like DLC, and I feel like that's just kind of always like it predates video games. Even like tabletop RPGs have expansion packs too, and like
that's true. But I feel like for tabletops, it's different because don't their expansion packs usually enhance or modify the gameplay in some way?
I think sometimes. I think it depends on the game and the packing in question.
Because I
do
feel
think
like
some of it is like story updates too.
Yeah, because I feel like with gaming, it's normally just story updates with like minimal impact to the gameplay. Like there's no real gameplay changes. You're not going to have any big, gameplay. Like the only thing I can think of as far as different gameplay in a DLC or an expansion was, I guess, that car chase sequence in later of the Shadow Broker in Mass Effect 2. And again, I keep going back to that just because that's the first one I remember. But no, you're absolutely right. Like tabletop games, because those are games, like video games are games. And PC, like I said, I do remember like seeing expansion packs for PC games because like I remember once I actually like was looking at one and an employee actually came over to me. They're like, "Oh, you need the base game for that, kid." And I was like, "What's a base game?" And he was like, "Yeah, you just put that down." Yeah, I was like, "I don't even know what a base game is, bro." So yeah, you're right. It's been around for a while, and I guess for
Clyde, you're
PC,
muted.
yeah, Clyde, you're muted. Hold on, there you go.
No, you're good.
My man got me. Say, Clyde, shut your ass.
I think my first experience is much later than everyone else's. It's like I played mostly sports games until like college, really.
Okay.
So the first game I really remembered buying expansion packs for or DLC for it was actually I think Advanced Warfare. Because me and Clyde played the zombies so much when we lived together that like we bought the new maps when they came out so that we could keep playing zombies. And like Advanced Warfare is pretty late kind of in the game for like DLC.
Yeah.
I forget when it came out. But also if we're talking about Advanced Warfare, if you didn't like it, that's a skill issue. Just saying. But Advanced Warfare was 2014.
Hold on, Clyde. You're super low.
You were getting... It was interesting. Like, the content was maps. You got zombie maps. You got multiplayer maps. You got, like, actual new content with it. But I don't know if like we considered that the start of like what's led to microtransactions.
Yeah.
Because what's crazy to me is like I do it too. I spent so much money on skins in like Call of Duty games and such, and every time I'm like, it's a fucking first player game. I don't even see myself. Why am I doing this?
Yeah, the fucking. So that's the thing with the first person like perspective games that give you the cosmetic shits. You're just like you don't see the whole thing.
The only time I see myself is when I die.
Like, oh wait, you know what? I bought shit for Gears of War 2.
But see, like those.
I think
are, like,
I bought
true...
maps and shit for Gears of War 2.
So that was, but in like Gears, that was like good cosmetics because like you could see the skins on the guns. You can partially see your character because it was in that weird third person hovering over their shoulders. So it's like everything felt worth it.
Yeah, I don't think it was Mass Effect 2 actually, because Mass Effect 2 came out, and that was 2010. So when was Gears 2? Gears 2 was like 2009, right?
Like 08.
Yeah, you're right. It was 08. So yeah, I guess Gears 2 was the first DLC I ever got. Because I genuinely don't remember buying maps for Halo 3, but we had the maps for Halo 3, so maybe my brother was the one buying them, and I just don't remember.
There were editions that came with the maps.
See, he did get the Super Duper edition.
Yeah, I think it was I remember like ODST came with all the maps for Halo 3.
Yeah.
But even
that's what it was. That's what it was. That's how I had it all. I had ODST.
Yeah.
Like all that stuff is content. And like
DLC.
I feel like the main question is when did it switch from you're buying extra content to like you're buying everything? Because like we've kind of pooped on Destiny a little bit and how they've like perpetuated the live service model, but at least they're like DLCs add to the story.
And they do enhance the gameplay. They do alter the gameplay
because
too. Like they add
Bungie
different classes and stuff. What happened?
Because Bungie knew there's just like this is what DLC is.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Like
you're absolutely
and Bungie's been doing that like since like forever. So it's just like, look, we give you DLC. This is DLC, bro. This is not just like one thing for a full price of DLC. Because I think that's one of the issues. It's like in Call of Duty, you be dropping $20 to have like a character skin, 2 gun schematics, and that's it. But it doesn't expand on the game. It's just for cosmetics. While in Bungie is like, yo, you get a whole gun, a whole story, extra skins, new lore, all that stuff. So it's like you're practically paying for like a small piece of the game rather than like a very like a percentage of the game that doesn't really matter.
I mean, I kind of blame Fortnite a little bit for the skins thing.
Well,
yeah.
What were you about to say something, Ralph?
No, I was gonna say, speaking about quality of DLC, I don't know if you guys remember GTA 4, Blood of Gay Tony, and like Lost and Damned.
Yes,
yo,
like that's how I see what DLC should have been like.
Yeah.
Well, those were also like literal expansions too. Like they called those expansions. They never called those like DLC. They're like, no, these are expansions.
And you don't see that often anymore.
That's right, because like. What was the motorcycle one? Was the Lost in the Dam, and that added like actual motorcycle combat and like more motorcycle. Like if you drove in formation, it boosted stats and shit.
It was like a whole thing, yeah.
And then Gay Tony had like a whole that had like the most over the top like third person action of a game at the time because you could get that gold plated that gold plated helicopter that had like a Gatling gun with missile launchers on it.
Yeah,
what every growing boy needs.
And they added like entire like radio stations and stuff.
Yeah, they added radio stations. You played as a brand new character in The Lost and the Damned.
Mm-hmm.
I think you played as a new character in Gay Tony too, right?
Yeah. You played as some bouncer from a club.
That's the other thing. They weren't just like story additions. They were just brand new stories in general.
Mm-hmm.
And then
funny.
like
it was all self-contained.
It happened at the same time as the main game,
which they're still doing with single player games. Like, I feel like one of the best recent examples is with Horizon, like how well received the DLC was for Horizon and like how much that added to the game. And I think like the temptation is out of it to make it transaction-y when it's a single player game.
Yeah, a lot of people were saying how like surprisingly good, bless you, how surprisingly good that DLC actually was. So I should probably like give that a chance at
Rob,
some point. Hold on.
what was your first DLC game?
There we go. Yes. Oh, I'm throwing things. I'm sorry.
Nah, it's good. Get the anger
Yeah,
out.
I guess to go back to like the original question, T. Well, actually, Ralph, did you ever say what your earliest DLC was?
It actually was The Lost and Damned.
Oh, really?
And that set such a standard for me and what, DLC and expansion should be like that. I've just been disappointed since.
Damn.
Imagine that being your first impression.
But that's the other thing too, is like so this also goes back to what I said earlier in the episode where like the digital alternative was usually the cheaper alternative. Cause like I remember the reason why I got so much of the gear shit is because those map packs were like $5.
Yeah.
So like if I bought myself like a Microsoft points card that was like worth 20, I could get like fucking 5 map packs and I was good for like 2 years. Now that's like 2 months worth of content. So I guess to go back to Terrence's question of like when did it become, and like the overall question that we did ask in general is like when did it become so crazy? I guess it's like I said, the most egregious one that I can remember was Star Wars Battlefront 2. Because I think because that was the first time we ever saw in real time Reddit actively bully a publisher to changing a game's whole release model and monetization model. Because I think somebody did the math and it was like you would have to play 100,000 hours of the game to unlock Darth Vader for free.
Like, that's just insane.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
See, like, I like little things like that because, like, then it becomes either skill-based or play to win. Like, I feel like I should be able to still unlock it through progression and actually like learning the playing of the game versus let me just throw money at everything so I can be the best. But in reality, it's just like I just look it. I'm not actually the best. Like,
I think that's why Helldivers 2 works.
Yeah,
because like there are microtransactions possible in that game.
But you don't need it
Because
like, they have the little.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, you don't need it, but they have the little superstore, which is virtual currency, which you can buy.
Yeah,
but that's a lot less than like the season pass stuff, like the war bond stuff.
Yeah.
But I guess the war bonds themselves, the war bonds you can buy with in-game credit, which is helpful.
Exactly. And it's just like,
and like you do get enough to buy the war bond, so that's fun.
Yeah.
The first game, according to Wikipedia, that had microtransactions was Oblivion.
Yeah, yes, it was. Thank you for saying that, because somebody pointed that out, and the headline was "Fuck Bethesda and fuck Elder Scrolls for introducing DLC."
Oh my god!
Because it was the horse skin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it was like $2.
It was the horse skin.
$2.50 for horse
for a horse skin, bro.
But again, according to Wikipedia, it says it was made as an experiment to test the market's reaction to DLC.
Damn.
And how was the market's reaction?
Apparently positive.
Again, but
it says most players reacted negatively, claiming that $2.50 for an in-game cosmetic item was too much.
And
it is insane, because now they're like $20 for in-game cosmetics.
Yo, for the same quantity, bro.
You get 12-year-olds out here who have dropped like $500 on Fortnite skins.
For like 2 kilobytes of data.
Hold on, Clyde, you were saying something?
I forgot, because I'm just astonished by the bullshit.
Apparently it's all Bethesda's fault.
It's always Bethesda's fault. I feel like that's going to be like an ongoing thing going forward when we talk about video games, is how Bethesda just fucked up the entire gaming industry.
I mean, how many editions of Skyrim are there? Because I guess that's the other thing we can talk about too, in addition to the DLC milking and juicing, is the HD remakes and remasters. Because a lot of people were like, "Why are y'all remaking The Last of Us already?" And then even when they announced the update for The Last of Us 2, I was like, "Dog, I literally just bought Last of Us 2."
Yeah, that was a little soon, but it was right before the next gen console. So they're like, oh, we can update it for the next gen.
So for the first game, I understand that because at that point the game was like over a decade old. It had launched on the PS3, but at the same time they had also updated it already for the PS4.
Mm-hmm.
But is that considered to be as egregious as Bethesda making an Alexa version of Skyrim?
You know, I think what was especially egregious about The Last of Us re-release was they charged a full $70 for it.
Yeah, for The Last of Us 2, that was, and you're right, for The Last of Us remake, just the remake, but also the update for The Last of Us 2 was also full price. Jeez. And they didn't add any content to it.
I do think there was an update. Well,
actually, I heard they updated the story, actually.
But I do think there was if you have it for PS4, you could upgrade for a certain price to the PS5 edition. I think so.
Okay.
But I'm not positive. Don't quote me on that, even though this is all recorded.
Because I don't think the remake has the multiplayer from the original game in it, does it? Because I thought that was the whole point of them making the now canceled multiplayer game.
Rest in peace.
The game they had been working on for 8 years. I think it was, right.
That's a long time. It was just going to be Clash of Clans. That's why they canceled it.
But that's the other thing too. Is like, so we were just talking. Like T, you had brought up the fact that how sometimes the multiplayer games just need to be like cooperative, story-driven games, not necessarily competitive multiplayer games. And that sounded like it was going to be both. It was going to be a cooperative, competitive, multiplayer, story-driven game. And that would have been interesting to see, but I don't know how they would have been able to pull that off. I guess that's why it was in development for so long, and maybe that's why they canceled it, just because they're like, maybe we can't pull this off yet. But at the same time, there's that one Black Ops game that we always mention every here and there, where Treyarch was making it a story-driven, competitive co-op Black Ops game where like you choose your faction, like pretty much how The Last of Us DLC worked. You chose your faction had a story, the opposing team's faction had a story. I mean, that's not really how the multiplayer worked. Like, it kind of does work how Helldivers 2 works now. There was going to be that thing where, like, depending on how well your faction did, it would actively impact the narrative of the other factions. And I always thought that was dope. And then Activision canceled that. So I wonder if we don't get those sort of games just because publishers think they're not worth the time and money.
Just weird, because like clearly you look at the success of Helldivers from a relatively small studio with a small budget, and it's like people don't want all their games to be competitive. Like, we just want to vibe and have fun. I remember when we were all playing Warzone a decent amount, and like the Godzilla vs. Kong event happened, and how disappointed we all were that it wasn't entirely PvE. Like, we wanted to drop into a map, shoot at the big monsters, and not get shot at by other people. And whenever you were trying to play the event, the friggin' sweaty assholes would just come up behind you and shoot you.
Yep.
And it's like, I'm trying to have fun and engage with this, and you are out here like just dripping in sweat because everything needs to be competitive all the time, and it's just so exhausting.
Fucking sweats.
And that's the other thing too, right? All of the monetization that they want you could still have that in a cooperative game. Like you guys pointed out, Helldivers 2 does it. I played Helldivers 2 so much I was actually able to get one of the war bonds for free. So I haven't paid for anything yet because I paid for like the more expensive version of the game, but like, so that came with the first premium war bond or whatever. But like the one that came out after that, I had so many credits just from playing the game, I was able to just buy it outright. And if I was consistently still playing, I mean, I still play here and there, but if I was playing like every single day, I probably right now would have enough to get the next war bond. I don't know a lot of games where you can do that. I remember doing it like once or twice with COD during lockdown, and that was specifically during lockdown.
Play enough.
Well, it was that, and it was also because they changed the progression system of it and how many of the points they gave you, because they realized they're like, oh no, we're making too much fucking money off of this.
Those stimulus checks were helping out when it came to Call of Duty, bro.
Yes, they were.
That too.
I was just like, It ain't my money. Fuck it. Let me get that skin, bro. Fuck it.
But like it's because those games do still exist. Like I think about we all played World War Z, and that was a fun co-op experience, and they did release DLC for that.
And it was worth the money because that DLC was only like what, $15?
And it came with skins, fucking new guns, new perks for each
new characters.
Yeah, like come on, bro.
New stories.
And that's another example of just a co-op game. That's not even really like there is a story, but it's not story driven at all.
And then their next gen update was only $25. Because I remember I bought Aftermath. We haven't played it yet, but that came with even more stories and more characters and more weapons. And I think there's a new game mode in it too. And if you already had the game, they're like, yeah, it's only another $20 to $25. And I think me and UT, we bought it when it was that, because we were like, that's not that bad for how much we were playing that game.
Yep.
Let's see. That's like a segue into like one of my concerns. When pre-ordering games and it comes with like additional content, a lot of that content is not worth it. But then you have some game developers that just like, yeah, we're gonna give you like a statue, the soundtrack to the game, an art book, and it's like all this extra shit. It's like, yeah, you know what? I'm happy I paid $100 for this game versus like content that everybody's going to have later on. You know, like there's no true exclusivity to pre-orders anymore, unless it's like when I got Elden Ring, I got like the art book, a soundtrack, a statue. Same thing with Mass Effect. I got the little thing from, who was it, Anderson or Shepard? The helmet and all that.
Oh yeah, and there was like a letter in there.
Yeah, and it was the Normandy poster. I was like, yo, this is cool. But then I'm trying to think of a game that I pre-ordered that didn't give me shit.
Well, was that the pre-order for the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, or was that like an extra edition you paid for?
That was
I thought that had an extra edition.
No, it was it was like a pre-order like elite edition, like a higher tier.
I may not have pre-ordered that.
I don't know.
Huh, okay.
Me and T, we both pre-ordered. And then the same thing with God of War.
That reminds me how I didn't know Helldivers 2 had a pre-order armor. Some people are, so it was literally it's a cool looking blue armor, like a full blue armor set. It's pretty dope looking. Apparently it's literally just like a frozen yogurt, like an in-universe frozen yogurt company sponsored set of armor.
That's funny.
And there are players murdering other players for wearing that armor because they didn't pre-order the game and they don't have it.
Yep.
Damn.
Arrowhead Studios had to be like, yo, stop doing that. Like, they actually had to go on Twitter and be like, of course they did it in character because all their tweets are always within the universe, within character.
Yeah.
At least from that specific account, from the Helldivers account. But like the fact that the Helldivers account actually had to be like, yo, stop. Like, stop bullying people because they pre-ordered the game and you didn't. That's ridiculous.
If I was a game developer, people who had that skin would have got a crazy ass buff, like no friendly fire allowed. Like, yeah, now what? Deal with that. Capitalism. I mean, not capitalism. Patriotism.
Well, that's the other thing too, right? Is that like one of the reasons why I personally stopped pre-ordering was because of Cyberpunk 2070, but also because like after a while, the pre-order bonuses would eventually just be released for anybody to get them anyway. So what was the point?
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit. I still pre-order stuff because I'm still stuck in like 2010 scarcity mindset where I'm like, this is going to sell out. And it's like, you can buy a digital edition anyway. And like games will not sell out now. But like, I can't get myself out of that scarcity mindset where it's like, if I don't pre-order it, what if I can't get it?
And it's funny that you said like 2010, because that was around the time. It was no. It was actually a few years after that. It was like 2012. Yeah, it was like 2012. When the first Last of Us originally came out on PS3, because that was like the summer I worked GameStop. It was like 2012, 2013. I was working at GameStop, and I remember people kept coming in asking for the game, and we just never had it. And that was when I learned that GameStop's inventory for new games was based off their pre-orders. So they would order all their pre-orders that they got, and then they would only order a very limited amount of walk-in purchases. So I remember there was one day I came in and my manager was like, we got Last of Us in. I was like, oh, dope. And so somebody walks in, they're like, yeah, can I get The Last of Us? And I was like, yeah, absolutely, you can. And I open our stock. I'm like, oh, this is the last copy.
Jeez.
And so I sold it, and my manager came out. I was like, yo, I sold our last copy of Last of Us too. Last of Us. He's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. They only sent 10 copies.
What?
It was literally the game of the year, and it was in the summer when I was working there. So it was the game of the summer, because I think that actually came out in like April or May, didn't it? Like it was a spring game, or maybe it was March. But either way, I think it was a spring release. So that was around the time when everybody's like, "Yo, I got the time to play this game that people won't stop talking about. Let me play it." And you couldn't get it.
June.
Oh, so it was a summer game. Okay, so yeah, like that. So you're right. You don't really have to worry about that anymore with the digital thing. And Clyde, we were actually talking about that earlier. You mentioning all the bonuses that people don't do that anymore. And it's because like if you want all those bonuses, you gotta pre-order it digitally, and then you get a digital art book and not a physical art book. Like there's one game I have that came in a physical, better Game of the Year edition, but I got a digital copy of the soundtrack. Whereas one of the times I bought The Witcher 3, because I bought that game like on sale so many times, I bought one edition that came with an actual physical copy of the album, of the soundtrack.
So like, this for me doesn't apply to games anymore, but since we're kind of talking about it, I want to touch on like the importance of physical media and why you shouldn't buy everything digitally. Like for games, it doesn't make much of a difference because discs are now just keys to unlock online content anyway, except with the exception of the Baldur's Gate 3 physical edition, because that's a super cool thing to do. And I hope more games start releasing fully playable physical copies of games. Clyde's mad because his pre-order still hasn't come, but that's okay. It'll come eventually.
They gave me my refund, bro. I canceled that shit.
That's fine. I'm gonna buy it still because like I think a lot of us, like, I didn't understand digital licensing until I read an article about it, and it's like if you buy something digitally, you do not own that thing digitally. You are paying to rent it from an entity for as long as that entity has access to give it to you. So like if you buy a movie on Apple and Apple loses the like digital rights to that movie, you no longer own that movie, and you don't get your money back, you don't get anything back, you just have nothing now. Yep. So like if you're buying a movie, if you're buying a TV show, if you're buying like anything that's I guess not a video game at this point, just buy it physically. Because it cannot be taken away from you unless it is literally physically grabbed from you and removed. Like, digital licensing is such a really sketchy thing, and if there's something that you really want to own, make sure you actually own it.
Well, it's also interesting that you bring that up, because I guess this goes into a further, even deeper discussion of the monetization of media. Because Disney is now releasing a lot of their Disney Plus original shows on 4K, like Andor got dropped, Obi-Wan,
they're coming tomorrow.
Yeah, see, like, and that's the thing is, like, I also plan on getting a couple of those for myself. Like, I definitely want to own Loki season 1 and 2. I mean, I don't think they've announced season 2 for a physical release yet, but season 1's out already.
Pop that.
I know for a fact if they ever release X-Men 97, I'm buying it, like, without a doubt, without hesitation. And that's kind of what's happening now, is that, like, it's getting to a point where a lot of these streaming services are going to have to go back to physical media to support themselves. Just nobody's going to keep paying $150 a year for several streaming services, especially if each one costs $150 a year, because it's wild to me that Disney Plus is going to start costing that much soon.
But also, like, there's not a singular streaming platform that makes money.
Yeah, WB announced that Max just turned a profit for the first time this past year.
Right, like,
for like how long?
And that's the only one. Like, the rest of them are
Disney's
hemorrhaging money.
Anything. Yeah, Disney's never said if they've made a profit yet. Netflix has never made profit off of their streaming, and they're the ones who started this whole thing, even though technically speaking, it was Sony with Crackle.
Fuck Crackle, I remember that.
Because they had their own original show before Netflix did. And Amazon started doing original stuff like around the same exact time as Netflix, actually. So like it's kind of been neck and neck with who did it first. But yeah, as far as I know, they've never made a profit. I know the Air Jordan movie that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon made together last year, Amazon straight up said the theatrical release for them was nothing but profit because they were going to make all the money back on the streaming service because people could either rent or buy it there, and it was their own movie. So they straight up said like that theatrical release was pure profit for them. But that was a singular project. It's not the streaming platform in general. Paramount Plus is clearly not making money because Paramount's looking to be bought by anyone and everyone to the point where Sony is now in talks to buy Paramount, which is crazy because there are rumors that like Disney was going to try buying Sony like 5 or 8 years ago.
There's also the rumors that Bob Iger came back to Disney just so he could sell it to Apple in a few years, which is crazy.
Yeah, I've heard that because they've been trying to buy Pixar from them for years, and they actually did try buying Disney. We were still in college, I think, when they tried buying Disney. That was when Disney was actually doing well for themselves.
That's wild now.
Those
Disney.
parks are still making money, man.
Oh, so
but no, you're absolutely
it's mine.
So we're gonna buy it, right?
You're absolutely right, though, Ralph. Like that is crazy to think about. That like, what happened?
I said we're gonna buy it, right? I thought, it's not even connected to my headphones.
We're gonna buy Disney?
No, we're gonna buy Paramount. We can't buy Disney, bro.
We can't buy Paramount either.
Not with that attitude.
That's right. You're right.
I think
Let me go hit those parlays.
Price tag and be like, I don't know.
The parlays.
Yo,
you're absolutely right, Ralph. Like that is kind of crazy to think that like because of streaming, the film industry is at a point now where like Apple could potentially buy Disney. But also think about that in a sense where Apple's in the movie making game and streaming game, and they're also not making profit. So why the fuck would they want to buy Disney?
Yeah. I mean, they can eat the costs though because they're Apple.
Which is another problem that companies can just eat that kind of money and still exist. Like,
yeah,
it goes back to our conversation about antitrust laws and how they're just not used at all. We just don't use them.
And that's why there's so many more antitrust cases that we're seeing all over the world now. Because like the regular common folk are like, yo, why aren't y'all doing your fucking jobs?
Mm-hmm.
That's too easy.
And it leaves even like the entertainment space in general. Like, I hate flying and I'd like to take the train places, but the experience would be so much better if Amtrak did not have a monopoly on train travel in the United States. Like, if we continue to go after these things and to like, you need market competition and capitalism in order to generate better consumer experience. Like, that's just the simplest aspect of it, and we just don't have it, and it's frustrating.
We did at one point, but the thing was with trains, but they became so unprofitable after a point because of cars and stuff.
So what I'm hearing is that we're gonna buy out Paramount and build our own railroad. Yo,
High speed rail.
Gotta build high speed rail. Direction of this podcast. I love this. We're ambitious.
We become railroad tycoons.
I mean, the reason we don't have high-speed rail is that's not monopoly related. That's just, lobby related. But we don't got to get political about it. But yeah, we don't have high-speed rail because the airlines pay the politicians to make sure we don't have high-speed rail. Anyway.
All right, well, we're not politicians, so why not? They're not paying us, so let's fucking do it.
Because we're going to have to pay for everything because the government won't help subsidize it for travel like they do with Amtrak.
Yeah, but
because they don't want high-speed rail because they want the planes money.
And like, once we start doing it, they're gonna be like, "Yo, shit! Like these motherfuckers they doing it." All right, let's get in there. They're gonna try to buy steak, and we're just like, "Nah, we don't eat steak, bro. We eat salmon on this side, and we good."
Let's go. We start laying the tracks ourselves. Just buy up all that land.
That's
get
it,
some
bro.
Tracks.
More guys with pickaxes.
Yo, I'm telling you, bro.
Listen, I'm Irish. We already built a lot of trains. We built a lot of tracks already.
Yes, you did.
We will have a bullet train from New York to California, and you'll be there in a mere hours, bro. 3 hours. Just saying.
New York to where?
California, bro.
In 3
Dude,
hours.
that train's going really fast.
It's
Dude,
a bullet train, bro.
Your neck will break.
I guess we could honestly, in a lot. Excuse me. That's a good thing to bring up to talk about next is the side effects of all of this, right? Because everybody talks about crunch in the industry now, and we had mentioned Anthem a couple times already, and that was a product. That was a product of people being taken off of that project and the people being forced to crunch on a game that they didn't know the story to because the story team had been moved to another project.
Dumb, bro.
So I guess that question really is, in the long run, in the grand scheme of everything, has the rise of DLC and microtransactions and live service gaming really been worth it in the long run?
I just like to say that this episode is sponsored by FEA. That stands for Fuck Electronic Arts. Yeah, carry on.
I think we touched on it earlier, where it's like if that extra money was being reinvested into the product, then it would be great. But the reason that we have games like Anthem, the reason that we have games that come out unfinished is because, again, the goal is always to make as much money as quickly as possible. And if you delay a game over and over again, you're not getting that money. And people will buy it when it comes out, and you can fix it later. And the only instance, I think, where a game actually suffered for that was Cyberpunk. And that's because that game was borderline unplayable when it came out.
Especially if you were playing it like me on a base PS4, not even a PS4 Pro, one of them fat, thick boy PS4s. Man,
That thing was screaming.
Fuck screaming. That game in my place.
That shit got the whole room hot.
But I do think I think the model makes more money, which is not inherently bad if you reinvest in the product and you make better games with it and you pay your developers and you let them work normal hours because you can hire more people to work on games. But that's never what's going to happen when the primary focus is making money as opposed to making good product.
And I think that's the other problem too, is that at some point, we also do have to realize that these publishers really don't care about their employees or us, because if they did, nobody at Ubisoft would have been getting, assaulted in several ways, verbally, physically, and same thing at Activision. It was happening at Activision. Even people who were working on the COD games, were we were being genuinely harassed all the time.
Yep.
So I guess that's what I'm getting at more than anything is because the crunch is terrible, but also just the fact that not only do you have to work a 20-hour day, but you also have to deal with literal abuse on top of it. At what point is something actually going to change? And I know that it's dependent on us as consumers, but at the same time, if we don't know, then we don't actually have power as spenders anymore because we don't know. We don't really have a line of communication with those creators. I bring this up all the time. You guys have heard me say it before that we don't see as much behind the scenes stuff anymore, and that's probably part of the whole plan to demonetize art. To make sure we don't want to pay for music. We want to stay home and watch streaming movies instead of going out to a theater and paying for it. It's all these corporations trying to change the way we think about and interact with all this stuff. But it comes at our own cost as far as quality goes, but then it comes at a literal cost to the people who make it.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's with that context, do we feel like DLC and microtransactions and live service has really been worth it? Especially as just fans of the art form of gaming. Oh, you said no, Clyde?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think it has the potential to be. I think it's important to say before, if anybody does ever listen to this, that we're not understanding what's happening. I think we all understand that corporations they literally need to make a profit. I'm not saying like they should be run like a nonprofit, but for instance, Activision Blizzard's net income, which is after we account for expenses in 2022, was $1.5 billion.
Oh.
And
again,
you can afford to hire more developers. You can afford to let people work normal hours. You can afford to do all of these things and still turn a relatively substantial profit. So it's not like abandon profitability, but just like there are things that you can do to invest in a product and make it better, but it's just not happening. And so I don't think that overall the microtransactions have benefited the gaming industry, and I just think it's because that money is not being reinvested.
Yeah, because like Sledgehammer laid off so many people, they've gone back to being fully remote. Toys for Bob's, the developer, is it Toys for Bob or Bob's Toys? I think it's Toys for Bob. The people who were making the Crash Bandicoot games, they straight up left Activision because they were tired of being boned, and they had laid off a bunch of people. And now Microsoft's like, wait. The Crash Bandicoot games were too good. We'll fund your game. You don't have to work with Activision, but wait, come back, come home. And that's the other thing, is that like it shouldn't take people being abused for them to get the freedom that they need to create what they want to create.
For them to be able to have a work-life balance.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to suffer to be able to live a good life.
Also, you shouldn't have to suffer so that I can make my little pew-pew games on my TV.
Yeah.
Like, I love video games, but at the end of the day, they're games, they're entertainment. Like,
yes,
human beings should not have to like be brought to their emotional and like wits end to create a thing for me to play on my console. It's not that, it shouldn't be that serious.
I think that right there is the point, is that it really shouldn't be that serious. And I think it's because of the way people talk about gaming in general. It's treated like life and death for no reason.
And I think part of that is because of the rise in like people making a living in gaming. Like content creators in gaming have kind of made it life or death because they lose their livelihood if games go under, if games fail. Like, so I do think that content creation in general is a space that has changed gaming so much.
It definitely
because like you have but like, also you have kids who look up to streamers, and it's like, I want to do what they're doing. I want to have the skins that they have. I want to play the game that they're playing. Like, it's driving microtransactions. It's driving like,
because sometimes the streamers are used to advertise.
You don't only make revenue from sales. You don't only make revenue from microtransactions. You make revenue from so many different places now.
Yeah.
I think we need sometimes to the whole like video games is bad for you, just to like kind of shake up the
we gotta shrink the market.
Yeah, it's just like, it's bad for you, yo. And that's it. Everybody's gonna be like,
nah, they're gonna make your kids violent. They're gonna make you go blind.
Well, but that's the thing, right? They still say that every time there's a school shooting.
Yo, legit. But it's like, it shouldn't be that.
Don't blame access to guns.
Yeah. They don't blame the parents.
Don't blame our system that fails people who need help. Blame the video games.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think there is a solution until
meteorite.
I guess we could end the show with this topic. We were talking about the whole non-compete clause becoming illegal in America. The reason why I want to bring this up, there it is. The reason why I want to bring this up is because there's a quote that says there are going to be so many new indie games from AAA developers. I'm like, that's interesting. I never really thought of that, just because like we don't stop and think. Like, in some industries, non-compete clauses can keep you from working for like anywhere from 3 months to a full year, or depending on the industry. I think there's non-compete clauses that will straight up say like, yo, if you don't work for us, you can't work for anybody else in this industry ever again.
Yeah, like non-compete clauses all they do is hurt people who are employed. So like, kudos to the FTC for actually doing their job and for at least greatly minimizing the effect that non-compete clauses can have, because there are still some that can remain. I think it's just high-level execs that are still able to be signed to them. But if you're a high-level exec and you make that much money, I don't think of you as a human anyway. We should eat the rich. Right. So I'm kidding, of course. But like, just like kudos to the FTC for doing that, because again, it goes back to the same thing as like antitrust laws. competition breeds success for the consumer, competition breeds innovation, and this allows for competition. Like, if you're not being appreciated, if you're not being listened to at the place where you are, you can go somewhere else.
Yeah. And I think, Aaron Sanfilippo, co-founder of Flipfly. I've never heard of this indie studio, but they said there are going to be so many new indie games from AAA devs because of the rule change. And this article saying, in theory, it makes sense. Developers restricted from competing against the company they used to work for. That could include starting up their own indie studios, at least for the amount of time that their non-compete is in place.
Yep.
I didn't think about it like that. I guess, like, if anybody ever left BioWare, like, wanted to start making an indie game, they really couldn't. I guess that's why you always, like, you hear about people leaving studios and then, like, a year or two later they start their own. I guess that's why they may have already started putting those plans in place. They just couldn't announce anything or do anything because these non-competes. And with that logic, that is true, because think about it. Like, now, once you're free, you're free to do whatever you want.
Yep.
And that means, like, you could start a studio and just go right back to a publisher you left, but you have more power because you are the one who funded it. It's your game. You just need them to publish it now. And that's true, where, like, you could start getting now more quality games like we were consistently getting back in the day from all of these publishers because they had such a variety.
Is that what happened to the people that made Left 4 Dead?
I think so.
Dang. They got
that's right, because they made Turtle Rock, didn't they?
I think so.
And then that studio went under when they did, what was the asymmetrical multiplayer game where there's a squad of people playing against giant monsters?
Left 4 Dead.
No, it was literally the same people, though.
Back 4 Blood?
No. Fuck!
Monster World Hunter.
Evolve?
Probably Evolve.
Hold on.
I'll say right now.
Yes, it was Evolve.
Got you.
The first-person shooter by Turtle Rock. Yeah. I guess there really isn't an answer. At least we definitely don't have one. But I guess this is a good time for any final thoughts, feelings.
I do think that next week we can touch on what I think will have an effect on, like, the space that we talk about, which is the return of net neutrality.
Oh,
I don't know if you guys saw, but yeah, net neutrality is coming back. So
I actually didn't see that.
Is it in talks or like
the FCC restored net neutrality, so like it's happening. Yeah, it's legit happening. Which, like, the very briefest description is just like, now your internet provider cannot prioritize certain things over other things to decrease. Like, they can't decrease your bandwidth because they deem something else more important. Change based on congestion, your bandwidth versus other people. It's net neutrality is super complicated, but I do think we should touch on it next week.
Absolutely.
That's good.
Gotta do my homework on that one.
All right. Anybody else? Any final thoughts, feelings, concerns?
Free all my gaming boys, bro. Right. They're trapped.
Where are they?
Down,
that
bro.
We need to free them.
Exactly, bro. Like, all my game developers, you gotta free them, bro. I think gaming needs to take a break. Like, whatever's on the market just stays there. And, like, we just go on a 1-year break, no new games. Everybody got to chill out.
Off season.
Yeah, that's it. Off season, bro. Like, they're doing a draft for new developers and stuff like that. So it's public. Bring back E3. E3. That could stay its own thing. I don't care for E3, bro. That could stay its own
when you think about it.
Yeah, like all the main consoles can have their own little public announcements for stuff like that, but we gotta wait a year. Like, start doing draft. Like, yo, we got this new person. It's like, who the fuck is that? Well, they used to work for Bungie. It's like, oh shit,
we're gonna find out.
That's it, bro. They were like, yo, new drafts for, like, sounds. Yo, Marty O'Donnell. It's like, yo, my man, he's back. And shit like that, bro. But
all right, well, thank you, everyone. It is, but honestly, I feel like this year has been a pretty good case so far for, like, I think I even saw something that said this essentially, that, like, this year has been a very good case for letting people just take their time and letting them cook. Because, like, look at how popular Dragon's Dogma 2 is. Like, apparently that's sold like 8 million copies already. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Helldivers 2. Like, Helldivers 2 sold millions of copies. Nobody saw that coming. So I think, and then, like, even some of the movies that have been coming out recently, I feel like Yeah,
Power.
I feel like this year is a very good year and is making a very good year for it to be a case of just give people the space and time to make their art, and it'll be worth it in the end. At least I hope.
Yep.
But yeah, thank you to everyone. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you to everyone for listening to the first official episode of Takes, Talks, and Tangents.
Got a
We
name,
all hope
friends.
that you enjoyed.
Yeah.
See you in the
Bye-bye.
next one.
Triple T boys are out of here.